Welcome to the National Dialogue Forum's very important conversation on curbing gender-based violence in light of the recent Anti-Rape Ordinance 2020. And this is also against the backdrop of an international campaign, which is the 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence. And I think this is also an important conversation in light of the fact that the recent Lahore motorway gang rape case made headlines. The media talked about it for a very long time, and it also prompted the government to expedite legislation, to improve implementation, to improve the prosecution of rapists and other sexual predators as well. There's been some discussion on this legislation, but it's very important, I think, to sort of have all parliamentarians, all political parties on board in this conversation. Just a little background, my name is Amber Shamsi. I'm a journalist, political commentator. I've reported extensively on not just human rights, but specifically on violence against women as well. I'm also a media trader. And the National Dialogue Forum is a non-partisan development organization that helps to formulate and advocates for public policy that fosters pluralism and inclusiveness. And the NDF considers dialogue as an essential instrument to reshape public policy so that it is much more inclusive. And the NDF focuses on engaging and facilitating dialogue with marginalized and disenfranchised groups in society. And let me welcome all the participants in this very important conversation on behalf of the NDF. And now, just to introduce the participants, we have with us Shamila Farooqi, who is an MPA representing the Pakistan People's Party, Amna Hassan Sheikh, who represents the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, Agha Shah Zeb Durrani, who's a senator associated with the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, Faisal Kareem Kundi, who's a former deputy speaker of the National Assembly, also representing the Pakistan People's Party. And we will have with us very shortly Kashmala Tariq, who is the federal ombudsperson for the protection against the harassment of women at the workplace, and Fawad Chaudhry, representing the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the Federal Minister for Science and Technology. Thank you so much for giving a time for this very important conversation. And just a little background, the ordinance that's been approved by Cabinet, it's an important step forward in terms of preventing violence against women. And we've seen that during various political governments, there have been lots of great legislation that has been passed. So for instance, against acid throwing, honor killing, improving rape laws as well, so that implemented better. The harassment at the workplace laws is actually also a very important step forward as well. But if we could just start with you, Sharmila, if we could get your take on this recent ordinance, because the idea, of course, behind it is to improve implementation of anti-rape laws and also, most importantly, prosecution. So while cases are definitely being reported, prosecution is very weak.
Precisely. Thank you so much, Amber. And thank you, NDF, and especially Vada, who reached out to me. This is a very, very important discussion. And of course, hello to all the participants who are already here in the panel. This is again, a very important ordinance. But how important is it? I wish the PTI would have probably started the discussion and kind of explained it to us, certain clauses that they've added in this ordinance, which seem to be quite unnecessarily and adding to, again, the cumbersome process that already entails, the arrest of a culprit in a rape case, and then the investigation, and then the thereon prosecution and the final judgment. Now, we all know that what is the conviction rate in rape cases. It's almost below 2%, which is extremely unfortunate. Another thing that is to be looked into is that we already have enough legislation on rape cases. We have a Women Protection Bill of 2006, in which the rape cases and gang rape has already been, the penalty for that is already death or life term. Then we had an amendment in 2016, which was the Criminal Law Amendment Offences of Rape Act, which makes DNA mandatory in all rape cases. Now, coming to this ordinance specifically, when I went through this ordinance, it kind of surprised me that how they have, made it more cumbersome and more lethargic for the rape cases to be investigated and the culprits to be arrested, and their own investigations and the final, the trial in the court, and of course the eventual judgment, whatever it may be. There are a couple of things that I kind of appreciated in this, but I think the main crux of this bill is to actually uh, convict the rape offenders, the rapists. But I think that the entire focus of this bill has been, unfortunately, not on that. It has been on the fact that, trying to make the entire process more lengthy. If we come to clause number 3, which is establishment of special courts, I don't understand why there was a need to make special courts. And again, the special courts are to be funded by a fund which is to be generated, and this is clause 20 that I'm reading. Now this fund will come from grants from the federal and provincial governments, aid and assistance from local, national, international agencies, and contribution from statutory bodies and corporation, etc., etc. Now, this is something very strange. Either the state ensures, that they put up these special courts, and it's not easy. Let me tell you, Amber, one thing. When you say establishment of special courts, it entails logistics, it entails buildings, it entails appointment of judges, prosecutors, and a whole long procedure. So we're starting right from square zero. Okay, we've gone back in time. Now there are already courts where the offenses of rape and gang rape can be prosecuted. Again, another thing that this bill unfortunately picks up and again makes the procedure lengthy is the anti-rape crisis cells. Now, I don't understand the reason for this. These anti-rape cells are the ones which again will be headed by the commissioner or deputy commissioner of the area, who are absolutely not sensitized about how to deal with rape cases. The medical superintendent of public hospitals, okay, then the district police officers, and you know how the police officers are. They do not know how to proceed with rape cases. So again, आप दोबारा उन्हीं लोगों के पास जा रहे हैं who's made this entire process unfortunately so cumbersome, so lethargic, so lengthy, and eventually we have no convictions. Now, what this bill is missing is it does not work on the core of the issue. What they needed to do in this bill was how to bring reforms in police. How should these police officers be trained, sensitized to deal with rape victims, their cases, how to collect the evidence. It does not speak about DNA labs. It does not speak about, now DNA testing is mandatory in all rape cases. And that is perhaps the one and only forensic evidence which can lead to a probable conviction. And the very fact that they're missing that, like if they say when they say clause 4 section 2 that there has to be a district police officer as deemed fit by the prime minister. Now everything goes back to the prime minister. Everything is the prime minister deems fit, the prime minister deems fit, whereas the prime minister should not be in this entire ordinance at all. कानून बनाना जो है वो लॉ डिपार्टमेंट का काम है, लेजिस्लेटर्स का काम है, असेंबलियों का पास करने उनका काम है, और फिर जो रूल्स ऑफ बिजनेस बनाना अगेन वो कंसर्न मिनिस्ट्री का काम है. I don't know where the prime minister is figuring in all this. The prime minister will establish or designate many anti-rape cells. Now they will establish anti-rape cells everywhere in different districts. अब वहां पर क्या facilities हैं to collect medical legal evidence? What facilities do they have? They don't talk about it.
So could I sort of insert a question here, because I realize that the intention perhaps is good, and we don't have government representatives on this panel right now. So let me speak on behalf of the government at the moment. Some of the key points here, as you said, are the establishment of the special courts, and we've seen that in legislation related to cybercrime as well. That when it comes to implementing or training, special courts, perhaps they take too long to be established. They're not as effective. However, one of the good things about this ordinance, for instance, is it has abolished the degrading sort of two-finger test,
Two
virginity
finger
test
test.
as
Yeah, I
well.
was coming to that. Yeah.
Yeah, which is actually has been a demand of women's rights activists and groups for a long time.
Yeah.
And coming back to several other points within the
And the
bill as well. And I'm just
cross-examination of the victim.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so the rape victim will not be cross-examined by the accused. It will be in camera, the protection of identity, which obviously in previous bills as well has also,
Yes.
legislation has been guaranteed as well. But it sort of emphasizes this even more. I think one of the most interesting things here is creation of the GIT as well. So this is something, a procedure that was not there in previous legislation, that actually perhaps gives this, it would improve prosecution and then leading to better conviction rates. The other important point here is the maintenance of data of sex offenders, which would be registered through NADA,
Yeah,
which
the
is another
database.
positive
Yes.
development. Which is another positive development. Um, this was fast tracked, and I'm going to turn to Faisal Kareem Kundi here because I want to include everybody in this conversation. We have a fantastic lineup of panelists here because let's talk about the process, because it's as I said, it was fast tracked. There was consultation. The law minister was involved. The law ministry, the entire ministry was involved. They also had another. Consultants in on this legislation who had worked on these cases as well. The question to you, Faisal Saab, would be, this is an ordinance. That means it doesn't have the buy-in of all of Parliament. It hasn't gone through committees. Sharmila Saiba is raising a few objections on some of the clauses within this ordinance as well. What should the process have been, given that there was a lot of media pressure after the Lahore motorway gang rape case to fast track legislation, improve implementation?
Sharmila Faruqi Sahib has given her consent, and she has thrown some light on it. Thing is, what you have said about this ordinance, that they have brought this ordinance, and ordinance is for very short time, like not short time, but there's a time period for the ordinance which should be lapsed in some time. The thing is that I think it should straight away go to the parliament, or first it will go to the National Assembly, and then they will send it to the committee, and committee will then refer it back into the National Assembly for passing it as a bill, and then again it will go to the Senate also. I think we are still on the very slow process. I don't know whether there is any member representing the government. I think Fawaz Chaudhary is a bit late. He is in the parliament. They should have taken this initiative, or because when opposition will take it, it will come on the private member bill, because in opposition can only bring their bills or something. It's only on Tuesday in the National Assembly, and government can bring it at any time. But still, we are, I think, lacking behind. They should immediately bring this thing into the National Assembly, and then send it to the Senate, send it to the Standing Committee, because Standing Committee will take some time. In Standing Committee, you have got representation from mostly all the political parties, and whatever reservation any party has, like Sharmila Faruqi has said, I endorse her. There's something which they have said that should be done by the Prime Minister, something being done by Minister, and then you go to the lower level where DC comes, or Commissioner comes in their local areas. I think they should not, because thing is, once something comes on media, then our local administration gets up and they start doing their activities. Otherwise, there are districts or areas where these type of things are not being mentioned, or it doesn't come on media and go like this. So this thing should be like a bit formalized. Go It should not go through like district administration. There should be some independent body. It should not be under the administration, because sometimes local administration also pressurize things on the people also, and then mostly they are poor people and they are pressurized by the local administration and they back out. So thing is that there is ordinance, well and good, but the ordinance will lapse after some time. They should bring it as a proper bill in the National Assembly, and then bring it to the Senate. I don't think so any political party might be there will be one or two parties who might have some rejection on it. But I notice there will be any political party who will reject this thing, which will immediately come in the National Assembly and go to the standing committee, and then they should pass it in the parliament.
All right. So your position here is that yes, it's a first step, but in order to make this law, it's important for the next steps be followed. And my question here would be, Senator Shahzeb Durrani, we've talked about what some of the issues with the ordinance are, some of the positive aspects of this ordinance as well. But I think let's also talk about what, in terms of pro-women's legislation, do you think that given the environment, political environment at this time, would it be possible for the government to get all opposition parties on board in terms of buy-in? That's one of the issues. That's possibly why this has been fast-tracked as an ordinance.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you all are, you can hear me. And I'm very much thankful to you, Amber, and especially to NDF. Well, this is a very sensitive issue. I'll put some light on the background. On an average, there are almost like 4,000 cases, rape cases that are reported annually in Pakistan. And about like, and I completely agree with Shamila that almost 2%, the conviction rate is 2%. Well, when I went through this document, the ordinance, I was pretty much confused because like at my first glance, I came up with more than a dozen issues, and some of them were highlighted by Shamila. And if I like briefly go through them, like the special courts will be established by the president. And if we look constitutionally, the president does not have the authority to form special courts. He only has the authority to like the specific authority, that is to pardon. But he does not have the authority to do anything on his own behalf. Whatever he has to do, the Constitution has given his powers. He has to do it through consultation with the federal government, that is the federal cabinet, and with the consultation with the prime minister. And then everything is being done by the president. President has to establish the court, president has to establish the fund, prime minister has to do this. Like they are mixing up a lot of things. We already have a lot of legislation, and they are like dragging the issue. They are like there is no need for all this, like to have the crisis cell. Why are you having the crisis cell? The same thing is already being done by the police and the medical legal officer and all of them. So you don't need to have it. Then you're bringing the major issue, the fund. Like we already had that dam fund. We had a lot of other funds. You are creating a room for corruption. You are, and the best part, like the prime minister is the supreme authority who will appoint, or maybe the president. They both have the prime minister will appoint the crisis cell, the members of the crisis cell, and the president will do the appointment of judges. So like here you will put your blue-eyed judges wherever you want them to, like, okay, he should be given something, so you will appoint him as a judge for that purpose, and then you are creating a fund for them. So you are giving a room for corruption. Then a major issue when I went through it, that what will happen the day this ordinance will be implemented, because the victims will not be able to go to the other courts. And it is not like the crisis cell will be created overnight, or the special courts will be created overnight. So on an average, we are having around 15 to 20 rape cases in Pakistan on daily basis. So how about those victims? Where will they go? Because no other court will be there to entertain them. And there won't be these courts or the fund or the crisis cell, like they won't, the government won't be able to create them overnight, or the president. And I'm pretty sure that president and prime minister, they are not that much free and having so much free time to like create these courts and crisis cells, because they have their own commitments. So what will happen to those victims? Where will they go, and who will entertain them? So a lot of issues. Well, coming to your question, we are a reactive nation. like this motorbike incident happened, and then we all of a sudden we became emotional, and then the government like tried to bring an ordinance. We already had a lot of legislation in this regard. The issue is that we have to improve upon the system. Like Shamila said, um, why we are having almost 4,000 cases on daily basis, annually, but only 2% conviction rate. We have seen that the victim or the family, they're being like threatened by the accused. The family is also being threatened by the accused, and so there should be a process that where you can provide them safety, and you can like protect them. The system and the government must ensure that the victim and the family is being protected. Then the system for recording the statements. We have seen that the victim always records the statement, and like after a few days or maybe like after that, they come up with, okay, like she was in a state of shock, or she might have lied, or like they back off. Why do they back off? Like because they get threats, or they get out of court settlement, or anything for that matter. So the government should come up with solution for these issues. Plus, as Shamila said, the training of the police officer or the whole team. And there's one more important thing. That is, like, we have seen the victims, but this ordinance is not covering the accused. There will be a lot of cases where the fudge cases or kind of alleged rape attempts, but those are the fake cases. If we see, there's a classic example of Ali Zafar. So during that process, he was the media trial he went through, and all the damages or the reputation, his reputation was tarnished, and all the process. So he must be accused. So this ordinance, or maybe the law, must protect the accused until he is found guilty. So there are a lot
All
of
right. Well,
issues.
I'm going to stop you there, Senator Durrani. I'm going to stop you there because you've raised a few points and your concerns about this. I don't want to bring in harassment issues here at the moment because I believe that if the process of investigation and prosecution is strengthened, it also protects the accused as well. I'm going to turn to Kashmala Tariq Saiba, who has joined us as well. She's also ombudsperson. And since we don't have government representation at the moment, I'm hoping that since we've raised our concerns, let's talk about some of the positive aspects of this particular law as well, because it does at least take a step forward. And we can talk about how it's an ordinance, how political parties across the board need to be involved in this consultation process. We've highlighted some of the issues that could perhaps would not be helpful in terms of getting better conviction rates as well. But this particular ordinance also expands the definition of rape as well. Kashmala Saiba, your take.
Hi, Amber. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Sharmila, hope you're feeling better. Faisal, hello. Shazib Saab, I just heard you. I think it's a good platform to discuss all these things, but unfortunately, Amber, I'm in no position to comment on it, being very honest, because there was no consultative program, or nobody from the government asked anybody, the stakeholders or the parliamentarians, I believe, or the civil society, or somebody who has worked on it earlier. This has been a practice with not only this government, with all the governments, because they don't include the stakeholders. And suppose if the ordinance was to come, the law ministry should have taken everybody on board for 1 or 2 meetings, should have sent a draft, taken the opinion or the views of the stakeholders, and maybe somebody would have given a better solution, a better suggestion, like I tabled the bill for women empowerment in 2006. Many things, many other people sat in it and then joined hands, and we improved the bill. So having said that, I did amendments in Hudud Ordinance, which included rape. We did amendments in honor killing. All three were my bills. But having said that, that I am not the final authority. Maybe what amendments came to my mind, I had forwarded them. And with the legal experts, the civil society, the parliamentarians, who are also civil society, people could have sat down around the table, have a discussion, talked about the pros and cons, like we did for the Hudud Ordinance, as it is a sensitive issue, right? Some people, they bring in the Islamic punishments as per the Hudud laws. Some people think that no, like this time around, an innovative idea came around. After the Zainab case, after this motorway case, we all are shaken, right? And we feel that there is a need for this. Why don't we talk and think about these things, beforehand? Okay, fine. Now it's never too late. We've done that. But we try to dig out. Uh, do we have a copy of that ordinance? I don't have it, at least, right? Having said that, so what stakeholders? But I would like to share it, and
may I ask a question here, because we've raised some of these concerns as well. But I think, do you think it is because there was a lot of media pressure on the government? There was perhaps international pressure as well, which is why the government fast-tracked it without wide-ranging consultation?
I'm sure it must be, or maybe if they are sensitive, there's nothing wrong. But I would say that they need to discuss people every time, even in our harassment laws. We find there are lots of lacunas, and we need to go back for amendments, and the amendments can't be done now because it's a lengthy process. You have to take everybody on board. So once when you're doing it, why can't you have opinion or consultation before bringing that ordinance or that law or sending it to the parliament? Number two. Number three, I just heard my colleagues talking about the lacunas in the process, where we talk about medical legal, where we talk about the DNA testing, and not to forget the famous case of Mukhtar Mai, who was gang raped, and then in the end, what happened? Did she get justice? No, she didn't. So the point is that, and here we heard different sorts of things that women get, while we are talking about 16 days of activism, that women come up with all these things just to become popular on the media or with the NGOs, all sorts of remarks from there. We suggested, if I can dig out my bill, it must be here somewhere, on Hudud. We suggested then that if very cost effective, the thing which we are talking about, that all the powers are given to the prime minister. That's what I heard, that they will set up the courts and they will do that. We are already financially constrained country, so why not use the resources which we already have? I think it's a very good idea if we have in a deputy commissioner's office one room allocated for such cases, and a local authority, one officer appointed there, who could take up these cases to expedite. Suppose if somebody is not getting an FIR registered in that area, in that tehsil. So on tehsil level, if you have one room allocated with the DC, because that's an authority of that area, which is given to such cases, people can go and report there, and in turn they can check with the SHO, they can check with the people over there, that have you done all the due diligence, and have you checked out the FIR, the medical legal, the forensics, the DNAs, everything. And from there on, that's the basic step. If the case is spoiled there, if the due procedure is not done at that stage, then the case is totally destroyed, because that's all about medical forensics. So I think making the courts is a separate thing. When we have the given courts, when we have all these facilities, I think we need to speed up the procedure, rather than saying that in the whole country we need to set up new courts and set up new systems. That will be cumbersome, that will be asking for another millions or billions or whatever, in waiting for that, and then justice delayed is justice denied. I think we got to have a speedy system, because DCO is the one who is in charge of all those things, and having a oversight on all these things can help expedite the thing.
All right, thank you so much, Kushmala Saiba. And I think you've also raised that point about how there needs to be wider consultation. You support the opinion of our other panelists as well. But I think you also raised a few other points about, for instance, as Sharmila Saiba pointed out, money. Where's the money going to come from in terms of the fund? Does this really expedite trials? So I'm going to turn to Amna Hassan Sheikh as well. And so one of the clauses of this bill is including independent support advisors for rape victims. They will accompany victims during court proceedings in order to in order to deal with their psychological trauma, duress, and there will also be a special committee in consultation with the Ministry of Human Rights, which will prepare a list of these independent support advisors. So essentially, there's also within this ordinance as well, protecting rape victims, rape survivors who are going through what is already traumatic, and then the trauma of a trial as well. I mean, this is a really great idea, don't you think?
Assalamu alaikum, Amber. Thank you so much, and thank you NDF for organizing this. I think that the specific provision that you referred to just now about the support advisors, I think that particularly is a very good step, because obviously these victims are going through a lot of trauma, and they are almost scarred for life. Most of them cannot come out of it for the rest of their lives. So I think it is a very good idea, and especially when they're appearing in court, when they're going through the process of trial, it's very difficult for them to, because there's a lot of pressure from the other sides, and even from the families. Most of the families, especially in our country, are not very supportive. They're more concerned about the image and everything, and they would be like, just leave it. So I think it's a very good idea to take this on. However, although I think that the support advisors, and there's this other provision in this law which says that there should be a list of pro bono lawyers which should be created with consultation with the Human Rights Ministry. I think that these are very good steps, but nevertheless, it's not enough to say that this law actually makes it much more difficult for the victim to get justice than the previous laws that we had. Because if you see, first of all, there are a few problems in the definitions. If we come to the definition of child in this new ordinance, it says child means any male or female. Why do you want to say male or female? The definition of child should be gender neutral, which means we should include transgenders to this law. When we specify male or female, then that means we are singling them out. So I think that's one major problem to start with in the definitions. Then coming forward, as I said, that it makes it more difficult for the victim to get justice. The problem is that they make a special crisis cell, then they make a committee. And what they say is that if any victim or any case is referred to the police needs to refer it back to the crisis cell. Then the crisis cell has to come back to the police to get an FIR registered. So it is just adding more and more steps and more, basically it's going to be more like a Chinese whisper going on, because when you go through 50 different steps, eventually, it just exhausts the victim, and it takes it far from getting justice. So, as they say, justice delayed is justice denied. And especially in cases like rape, how can you possibly think that adding 5 more steps to the already in place system is going to help the victim? I don't see it happening anyway. Secondly, the issue of making the committee, making the special courts, if you have gone through the ordinance, it says that any sessions court can be declared a special court. The sessions court already have the authority to try rape cases. If any sessions court can be appointed as a special court, then what is the need of the special court in the first place? And then how do you decide that in what place you have to appoint this sessions court as a special court, and where you have to make a new special court? So, it's literally all over the place. Then the law is so vague that even if it's about the appointment of judges, even if it is about making the rules, everything is to be done by the president and the prime minister, then what is the point of this 14-page ordinance when all it says is president and prime minister shall do this, shall do that whenever required? So basically it's literally a vague piece of document which only gives room to a lot of corruption, where we already have foreign funding cases, and now you are saying that also to try rape victims and to establish courts, you're going to get funding from foreign organizations. So I mean, how do you justify that? In what state do we do this, that the state has to rely on foreign funding to give justice to its people? So I think these are like some major problems that need to be addressed. And other than that, what I feel lacks in this law, like I personally feel, as Sharmila Sahib also mentioned, that we already have the law in place. The 2016 amendment was by far the most comprehensive one, but I think there were some things that needed to be added in that 2016 amendment, which the government has totally failed to look at. Firstly, I think there has to be a bar on media trials, on police officers and people related to investigation to give statements prior to the trial, because obviously that affects the outcome of the trial. And there is no mention of any such thing, because even previously our prime minister and the entire government has been protecting the CCPO Lahore when he gave a statement which was obviously very unfortunate. So I think maybe like they've gone too far in protecting that one person, that they do not understand that police officers or any persons related to such cases should be stopped and barred legally from doing anything like that. In addition to that, there is a provision in the 2016 law which says that the identity of the victim shall not be revealed unless allowed by the victim itself, or in case the victim is of unsound mind or the victim is minor. Then in those two cases, the guardians or the parents, if they allow the victim of the identity of the victim to be revealed, then it can be revealed. So I have a major concern here. Okay, if a person is of unsound mind, I understand it's okay for their parents or the guardian to give consent for the identity to be revealed. But if the victim is a minor, we have seen cases in Pakistan where the parents of the children who were raped or sexually assaulted in any other way, a lot of times they belong to poor families and underprivileged areas, and they would very happily reveal the identity of their child for publicity, for charity, for other purposes. But do we not realize what could be the effect of revealing the identity of that child on his or her mental health when that child grows up and that child goes to the school or the university or goes out to live a normal life, and she or he is not able to face the world? She becomes suicidal, she becomes depressed, anxiety, anything. So I think in case of a minor, the parents should not be allowed to have the liberty. The state shall act as a guardian of the minor child who has been subjected to such a crime and should make sure that their identity is protected. So I think that's one very important thing.
All right. I'm going to stop you there, Amna Saiba, because I think it also raises another question. So what, and I will ask all the participants one by one, and we'd like a quick take on that. But I have one other question. I think that's very important as well. Sharmila Saiba, I'm going to turn to you. The question here is, this is an ordinance. It doesn't apply to all provinces, and we've seen that many provinces, Sindh included, have done some great work in terms of pro-women legislation or legislation that tries to prevent or curb gender-based violence. So given that there are a lot of complications with this law in terms of some of the problem areas, in terms of it just being an ordinance, for instance, if we talk about a national database of sex offenders, that would need the provinces, the legislature would need the provinces to also be on board.
Yes, Amber, I mean, if you read the title of this ordinance says that, it extends to the whole of Pakistan.
Yeah.
And then again, when they talk about the funds, they are asking the funds to be collected from the federal and provincial governments. And unfortunately, there's been no consultation with any of the provinces or even the parliament itself. Now, again, the issue is that this is an ordinance. What was the hurry? I mean, if you want to ride on a, on a wave of populism, there was this Lahore motorway gang rape, and there was this, the entire country was up there and shouting and screaming that there has to be an end to this heinous crime, and then you come up with this populism, and you bring up this ordinance. What they should have done is they should have gone back and probably amended, given an amendments to the previous laws and strengthen them. Again, I'll come back to my primary issue. The issue is, why is the conviction rate less than 2%? Because your prosecution is very weak. The same police officers who investigate, who collect the evidence, who gather the evidence, are the ones who are the most corrupt. And now when you put the commissioner or the deputy commissioner of the area, and if this committee, these crisis cells, again, it's headed by a DPO. So sometimes these DPOs, or most of the time these DPOs, are appointed on the recommendation of the area's influential, and most of the times those are the people who are involved in these rape cases. We've had so many cases where the area influentials are involved in the rape cases, and the police officers are appointed on the recommendations, and hence the investigation is faulty, just to give a clean chit to the offender. Now, again, coming to, as Amna said, the legal assistance. Again, the legal assistance provided.
I'm going to stop you here before we go to the legal assistance, because I think there's a couple of points that I want you to answer as well, because I know that the ordinance says it extends to the whole of Pakistan, these special cells as well, established across Pakistan. But we do have the 18th Amendment, and police falls under provincial governments. So again, it's complicated. Do you think the government didn't think this through?
No, because this government doesn't believe in thinking or consulting or taking all the stakeholders on board. Unfortunately, I have to say this. I don't like saying this. This is. I mean, I would have really appreciated if there would have been a parliamentary committee involving all the political parties' representatives and discuss these clauses there, and come up with a better framework. How to establish the code. You don't need to make special codes. You don't have the funds for them. Either you have a provision in your budget for that, which is gone by. They can't get the money out of the budget anymore because it's already been done with. They have to wait till next year. Then, I mean, fund, as one of the participants very rightly said, the dam fund and the funds after funds and every funds. Where are the funds going to come from? The COVID fund, the rain fund, rain relief fund, and all those funds. Again, the legal assistance is also dependent on the funds. Where are you going to get those funds to establish this? And by the time you even think about establishing all these things, the ordinance is going to lapse, because this ordinance is so very much faulty. It does not focus on one most important issue, that is the collection and the investigation of the forensic evidence. That is the one single thing that will lead to the conviction of the rapist. But the entire focus has been on making committees. And then again, Amber, there is another, I don't understand the idea of support advisors. And you know what these support advisors will be? These will be probably some Tiger Force people, because if you read clause
but the
11,
ordinance says
4.
that it includes social services, psychologists, doctors, lawyers.
Okay, now a rape victim. Now, Amber, a rape victim. I'm very sorry to say this. A rape victim is someone whose life has been shattered. No matter what, even if the rapist is convicted, her life is shattered. It's done with. Okay. Now, what the kind of support advisors that you're giving her is a lady health worker. Either you have designated, registered mental health therapists, psychologists. They are the ones who can help the rape victim. A social worker can't. A member or a nominee of a civil society or an NGO. I'm sorry, an NGO, a person belonging to an NGO can probably work in this regard, but really cannot give you that kind of therapy that a registered psychologist or a therapist can. Again, then there is another special committee. That special committee is going to go ahead and see the effectiveness and the compliance of this ordinance. My God, that's not, I mean, they are now
But
again
how else?
going to
I'm going to
overview the
put
full.
that's an important question, because I think I want to take this to Kashmala Saiba, because I think, again, we do have the laws, and there perhaps anti-rape laws that were passed, honor killing laws that were passed in 2016 as well, multiple laws. The problem, as has been repeated ad nauseum, is always implementation. So if there's a committee that oversees this, perhaps implementation will be improved. But I think that's, I want to add that to the question to Kashmala Saiba, which is that these laws were passed in previous regimes as well. Clearly, conviction rates did not improve. So we did need legislation.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, as I mentioned, that there were these 3, 4 major legislations which were done in the past, and even now, at that time it was legislation, now it is the ordinance, right?
Mm.
And that piece of legislation was done through the parliament, and the consultative program took place, and even the fundamentalists and people from religious parties sat on the table, and we discussed, even which included the definition of an adult or not an adult according to the UN, 18
Mm.
years and 16 years, and the age of getting married, and what is a rape and what is a marital rape or not a rape. I still remember that was back in 2006 wala parliament, right? So I was there from 2002 to 2012. So, there was a consultative program, and suppose I tabled a private member's bill, but then it was taken to the committee, then a special committee was made, everybody made deliberations, so that nobody, especially the religious sect of the society, does not finger point that, this is un-Islamic and we are not going to accept it. You have to take everybody on board. And the Council of Islamic Ideology was discussed then as well. Now what you are saying, and what Sharmila is talking about is absolutely, this is the crux of the same old things, but if it was deliberated upon and the stakeholders would have been taken on board, public representatives like those committees would again involve those public representatives which they're talking about as DCO being the head of the committee. You need to have strong people sitting up there. No need for special courts, I would say. I agree with Shamila.
Mm.
Having said that, the committee to facilitate, to speed up, there again, what? Medical legal. Forensic is the most important thing. We have just one forensic lab in this country, that also in Punjab. And then anywhere, if anything happens, the case goes there. So the point is that you need to have, suppose in all 4 provinces, you need to have four forensic labs. If you need to have assistance on what? Because by the time it reaches somewhere, or the case is delayed, or if the SHO is not helpful or the ASI is not helpful, the case is not registered, he's taken money. As we spoke about the corruption level of the police, so women are even harassed in the police station. I used to be on Law, Justice and Human Rights Committee, and we dealt with cases where the policemen have raped the rape victims. Policemen raped the rape victims who came to them to register an FIR. So it has been a brutal system all along. But nonetheless, having said that, as my friend Amna also mentioned, very valid points here. I think consultation is very, very important before, if suppose this ordinance lapses in 3 months' time. Before that, people should gather, sit on the table. Legal, as we said, civil society, parliamentarians, everybody sits across and gives their input. Improve, even if we want to, suppose we are saying the government had good intentions, they did a good job by pushing it through, at least brought something, but bring in with the amendments, which are, and president, I would say, out of all the people, I have the privilege to work with him, because ombudsman's appeals goes to the president. He's all ears, he's very receptive. president, if we tell him anything makes sense to him, it's, see, the president, this whole thing we got to understand is done by the law ministry, i.e. Mr. Farooq Naseem. So president is not a law knowing man. He has been a parliamentarian. He's sitting up there. So whatever goes to him there, I am a lawyer. Somebody else would be knowing, who is a law making or a lawyer, would understand it more specifically, the difference of, like she said, a girl or a boy, and it should be a child. So in our legislation in harassment, we should have the word person, not a man or a woman, right? Because it should include transgenders as well. So somebody who's law knowing. So this whole what do you say, ordinance is made by law ministry, right? Law ministry made it and sent it to the president, and he's a signatory to it. You got to understand that. So basically, Mr. Farooq Naseem should be taking people on board, or the president can hold that consultative meeting under his leadership, because he's been a parliamentarian, and invite everybody, including the law ministry, obviously, which goes without saying that they should be there, and all the people should be there and giving in their input, and the best document, which is practical, would come out there, and not to forget, with the best practices in the world. So something which we are going to experiment, we can learn from others' experience.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to stop you there, because you made a suggestion where if the government is so determined to get this passed as an ordinance, perhaps the president could, before signing it into law, hold a consultation. But quickly, because we're running out of time as well, and I want some input from everybody else. Kushmala Saiba, if you could change one thing about this ordinance, what would it be? One thing.
Well, you know, it's not about one thing. It's, Amber, it has to be a whole collective approach. And as we said, that there are small minor things. One addition of one comma and changing of one word changes the whole meaning to that legal language. So you have to do it in a, as in a package, and improve the whole document. It's not
All
about
right,
one.
thank you. I'm going to quickly move on. Senator Shahzeb Durrani, if you could change one thing about this law, a suggestion.
It's not about one thing, as Kashmala said. It's about the ordinance. We don't need ordinances. We don't need any more laws. What we need is strengthening and implementation of the existing laws. We don't need like we'll be having lots of other laws and laws after laws, but there won't be, if there's no implementation, what's the need for any other law?
The fear really here is that 120 days, the ordinance lapses, is lengthy processes, money, nothing gets sorted. Faisal Kareem Kundi Saab, if you would like to change one thing, one addition, one change.
If I want to add one thing, that should be, I think, speedy trial, and there should be some time limit for that. That it should be like the speedy trial should be for 30 days, 60 days. Some time frame should be there for the judiciary or whoever is listening to that case. That they should, because in Pakistan, unfortunately, we have got this thing which take years and years to be sorted out. So I want first thing is the other amendments my colleagues have told you, but I think the speedy trial should be, specific time should be given in that ordinance. Or
but the problem is, I mean, in terms of anti-terrorism and anti-corruption laws ensure, or, you know, it's written into the law that the trials would be speedy. It doesn't happen though.
But if they give them time period, like 45 days, 30 days, 60 days, whatever time they want, or 90 days, whatever, and it should be like brought on that time.
Like we have 2 months given for harassment cases.
And it's somebody like you can perhaps ensure it, but you know, not everybody. I'm going to ask Amna if you could change a couple of things about this law quickly.
So from one thing you move to a couple of things.
Because I realize that there are a lot of suggestions.
Okay, so what I'd like to mention is, as Faisal Saab said, that there should be a time limit. So in the 2016 law, we already have a time limit, which is 3 months and 6 months. for the trial and then for the appeal. So the time limit is already given. I think if we are to make an amendment, I would rather suggest on making it shorter. But as far as this ordinance is concerned, I think the only thing I would like to change about it is that we do not have this ordinance at all. Another thing that I would like to bring your attention to is, which the government has completely failed to notice, that especially in the rural areas, it's a common practice that such cases are not taken to the court, rather they're taken to the jirga or the panchayat. In 2017, there was a case. I mean, there are plenty of cases every day, but some are reported and brought to media attention. In Multan, a girl was raped. A 13-year-old child was raped. The case was brought to the panchayat, and the panchayat ordered that the brother of the girl who was raped rape the accused person's sister. So what do we do when the so-called people who are regulating locally the law, they are actually ordering people to rape another person as an, as a means of serving justice? So the law, the previous law and the current ordinance both totally failed to, cater to the problem of aiders and abettors and the panchayat system and the jirga system. This is a very important problem that needs to be discussed, that any person who aids or abets, and it's not just the panchayat and jirga, and even where there's one-on-one rape, even in cities, there are people who aid and abet such activities. One person called a girl to a certain point and another person raped her, so the person who called her just gets away with it. So we need to have provisions for aiders and abettors, and we need to have a law which strictly prohibits panchayats and jirgas to give any such statements or any such orders regarding to this, rape problems.
Thank you very much. I began with you, Sharmila Sahiba. I'm going to end with you. Suggestions in terms of perhaps an addition or something you'd like to change?
Yes, Amber. So just about the trial and the stipulated time period, Section 16 says that, the court, upon taking cognizance of a case under this ordinance, has to complete trial, preferably within 4 months. Preferably, it could go up to 7-8 months or probably a year. And it says that the court will only allow 2 adjournments. So I think this needs to be more stringent. But what I would actually add in this bill is a couple of clauses regarding the collection and the gathering of the evidence. I would actually insert that, at least every divisional headquarters should have a DNA lab, and every district, at district level, they should have DNA kits, and train officers, especially female police officers, who not only, accompany the rape victim, but also ensure how the samples are collected and processed. And because I think this is one most important thing, as I keep on saying again and again, it probably will lead to a probable conviction of the rapist. But this has already been inserted in previous laws and in section 164A. So, but I think what we need to do with the law is ensure and plug those lacunas and loopholes which actually lead to a delay in prosecution and trials, and the eventual fact that the rapists go away scot-free. So we need to actually work on that. And as I said,
and you don't think this ordinance deals with those
it
specific
doesn't even
issues?
touch upon those things. It doesn't even, unfortunately, touch upon those things. They are again giving the investigation to the same DPOs and the station house officers and the SSPs of the areas, who themselves are most of the times involved in actually misleading the trial.
All right, we've come to the end of this discussion, and there's so many points.
Add one thing. Just one little thing. I think the non-serious attitude of the government is apparent from the fact that people from all opposition parties are here. We are discussing this very important issue, but nobody from the government bothered to show up. This is how serious they are about this issue.
So the government is an ordinance factory. They have made
That's a valid
turned
point
the parliament
because
to an audience factory.
you know, as somebody who is moderating this event, I don't represent the government, and I can't, and I shouldn't, but I've had to sort of present their point of view because there was no government representative on this panel. But I think all of you raised very important points, and broadly, I think a few takeaways that I'd like from this is the fact that this piece of legislation would have been better had all stakeholders been consulted. Kashmala Saib also presented a solution, a potential solution, which is if the president were to hold these consultations before signing this into law as well. I think one of the issues here is that if we want speedy trials, maybe the word preferably shouldn't be there, and the entire process actually makes it perhaps more cumbersome. I would have liked the government's take on this, but we didn't have it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for participating in this
Write
very
it on
important
the PM's
conversation.
portal.
And thank you so much as well to the National Dialogue Forum, actually, for holding this, giving us all an opportunity to talk about this, so that any important piece of legislation, you know, oversight is important, consultation is important, and discussion the most important. Thank you, Kashmala Tariq Saiba, Faisal Kareem Kundi Sahab, Shahzeb Durrani Sahab, and Amna Hassan Sheikh and Shamila Farooqi Saiba.